These two guys right here had some interesting things to say in the Grant interview about Micah. And we're going to talk about it today, and I want to get your takes on everything. So let's dive into it. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. We're going on day like 27 of uploading every single day. So that's awesome. Been lots of news, and I want to keep you updated. So hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this content. So I doubt you have missed it, but in case you have, Rick Shiels had Grant on his podcast, one of the first parts of their week of collaborations over in the UK. But there was one other standout moment from it that I want to discuss with you, and it's when these guys started talking about Grant going solo. It was around the 50-minute mark in the episode, and we are going to watch some clips together and react, but they began talking about him leaving Good and then talking about going solo and the effects of it and how he was kind of balancing the two things, and they really dove into the fact that Grant is just all in on YouTube. And there was some bleed off conversation that I found very interesting, talking about how hard it is to try to do YouTube full time and something else. This is a topic we've talked about on the channel before, but to hear it from the mouths of the biggest creators on the platform, I think you guys are going to find interesting. Let's watch that together.
You know, you see a lot of creators do this, and Rick did it with his Quest for the Open many years ago. When a creator tries to have like an actual channel and also a mission within that channel to get on a tour, it's so hard to actually do them both successfully. I think the Bryan Bros may be one example of that, where obviously George went on to play on the PJ Tour and win. But to actually balance the two, Wesley, it's so hard to do them both.
Yeah, I mean, Bryson, I remember talking with Bryson before he, when he was just starting his YouTube channel, and he was like, he wanted to be like the first guy to try and do both. And it's just that it's hard. Like you can't focus heavily on your career on the PJ Tour and be doing content creation unless you have a team that's kind of doing it for you and you're just doing it.
But then that comes across as it's not really you.
Exactly.
That's the difference. Like
exactly.
If it's your channel, you've got to be involved with it. You've got to have a say on the edit. You've got to have a say on how it's going to be produced or what matches and where you're going to play and this, that, and the other.
Okay, there's more to this, and we're going to get into it in a second, but let's just break that down because this is a juicy clip. These guys are so right. It's crazy. And it's validating to hear them say all this because this is stuff that I've been saying, so it's nice to hear them come out and say it. But it really is the case in today's day and age. Blue in the face, but today's day and age on YouTube, it has to be such a sole focus. And what happens when it's not? Let's say you're one of those people like Bryson who has a boatload of money and you can hire a videographer, you can hire an editor, you can hire this, you can hire that. You outsource everything, the ideas, the thumbnails, or whatever. You just show up the day of and you're on camera. That would be like the model. I mean, it's the model that even if you look at like Will Smith and all these people who like famous people who tried to get in on YouTube when YouTube started blowing up kind of mainstream in like, I don't know, 2015, 16, 17, 18, somewhere around there. That's what they did. That's the model they did. But they were all unsuccessful. They had a bit of obviously push from the fact that they're celebrities, but David Dobrik, Casey Neistat, Mr. Beast would just demolish them with views every single time, even though they're way less mainstream of a celebrity. Now, why is that? If you're just showing up the day of a shoot, stepping in front of camera, and just kind of going through what you're told to go through, it's not authentic, and audiences can suss that out. Like, even if I was to make this show and I was to walk into this big professional studio with like multi cameras, but I was to sit down, I wasn't going to know what I was talking about. I had a script that was written for me. I was kind of reading off it, pausing, reading off it. You would be able to tell, right? Like, there's something about the connection we have from being one camera in this room, me talking right off the top of my brain to you guys and really communicating how I feel. It creates a level of authenticity and trust. And that's the same with golf creators. That's the same with GM Golf and Garrett and all these guys, Grant and all these guys who are creating this content. You can tell it's theirs because they have such direct control over it. And so it makes it tough to try to outsource. And that's the thing is like, so you can't outsource your YouTube. You certainly can't outsource your professional golf. Like in Bryson's case, he can't just have someone else playing golf for him. So two things need your 100% time, attention, and focus. And that's impossible.
Have you got any ambitions to play on tours or to play professional golf? I know obviously Micah seems like he's going much more that way.
Right.
I've not spoke to Micah about that. Obviously, I know you mentioned that you obviously still hang around with him a lot. Is that something that you've got ambitions for, and is it something that Micah's really trying to focus on?
Yeah, I think that's definitely Micah's passion is pro golf, so he's going in that direction. My passion's YouTube. I love thumbnails. I love all that. Like I get into that. Me and Skylar, we just sit like all night, just talk about it. That's all we do.
There's a distinction sort of made there that is something, again, we've speculated about on the channel in the past, but was almost like fixated on in parts of this podcast, and Grant really highlighted it there. It's like Rick Shiels brought it up directly, asked about Micah, kind of suggested, kind of same as me, like he hasn't had direct conversation with Micah, but he's heard this stuff online. He's kind of heard Micah say it here and there that he's maybe going to pro golf, but like we don't really know what that actual direction shift and focus looks like. And then Grant basically saying like, yeah, Micah's going pro golf and I'm YouTube. And it just feels like that's like from a guy who's like with him every day, basically. They live together in Jupiter, maybe not in the same house, but like, you know what I mean? They film together, the TaylorMade athletes. That's a distinct statement. Right? And I think that's the first time we've heard it said so succinctly. And right after our conversation about having really the inability to do two things all in. So it's interesting. I think the positive spin on this is that there's a challenge laid out. And like, I've had conversations with Micah like back in the day about this, and back in the day, like months ago, whatever, when he was kind of hinting that he wanted to do more pro golf content. And, you know, I really do love that for him. I've said this on the channel a million times. I think it is the most authentic content he can make right now. If that's truly his goal, he wants to be a pro golfer, show the behind the scenes of getting to the tour. And that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing with this Journey series. However, I still just wonder how you can make both things work. And they put the challenge out at the end of this podcast clip. They talk about it. They're like, hey, like the first person to do that is going to have an insanely big fan base, an insanely loyal fan base. Like if Micah works his way up, and I mean, Wesley kind of did this, and they have a big fan base. Look at them grow. But if Micah works his way up through mini tours, through Corn Ferry Tour, and makes it onto the PGA Tour, let's just say hypothetically, I know so many people are going to comment and say, nah, he can't do that. He's nowhere close, whatever. Let's just say he even works his way up to like, I don't know, the Canadian Tour. He's playing on the CPGA Tour. That behind the scenes is something I personally would love to watch. And so it's an interesting balancing act. And I think it's very interesting to hear the biggest creator in the space talk about how impossible it is to do two things at once. So it's an interesting juxtaposition. This is something we've talked about a million times on the channel, but to hear Rick give his thoughts on it almost validates what we've been saying here a lot more. So I thought it was very interesting to share. But I also, like, again, I'd love to see it happen. I really, really would. How it's going to happen, how it's going to work, I don't know. It would be impressive if it does go through. But I really do think that Micah, if he keeps making this content, he will still have an audience. It's going to be smaller at first, but if he gets successful in the golf stuff, I think his golf content will continue to be more and more successful, and he'll be able to build it back up. But I think the two are going to kind of go hand in hand. So it'll be interesting to watch. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you in the next one.